The fifth purpose is, I would argue, is to establish the office of the prophet and the ministry of the prophets. Establish the office of the prophet and the ministry of the prophets. Do you remember when we were doing the book of Numbers? I don't know how much talking we did about the episode of prophesying that occurred when under Moses' leadership in the wilderness. Remember, there were some guys who were prophesying outside the camp, and Joshua got all uptight about that, and he wanted Moses to do something, and Moses was responsible and said, would that all God's people are prophets? So we see the mantle of prophecy occurring even while they were in the wilderness. God was bringing some sort of information that way, besides just through Moses. And then in Judges, when we were in Judges chapter 6, we had Deborah the prophetess. The Levites were supposed to teach the people, but remember when they're in the wilderness and just before they're ready to go across, and Moses is teaching them on the east side of Jordan, he says, when you go in the land, do not resort to those diviners or those seers or whatever. If you need fresh information, I'll send you a prophet. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15. So don't go to them. When you need new information, I'll send you the prophet. And so we begin to see this now getting established in the time of Samuel. Moses was called a prophet. And remember in John the Baptist's ministry, remember they asked him if he was that prophet. There's a reference back to Deuteronomy 18. Elijah judges for 40 years, but he's not a prophet. He was a priest. Now, in Samuel's time, we see the appearance of what is called in some places a band of prophets, in another place a company of prophets. There's absolutely nothing in the text explicitly that tells us where they came from, how they came to pass. You'll read some commentators and they'll say Samuel was the one who instituted schools of prophets, but nothing, when you read the text, it doesn't say that. It's just that he's on the scene. And then at one place, he ends up being the leader of this particular group. He's at the head of them, but it looks like he's just self-appointed as opposed to having brought those to pass. And then they pass, after Samuel passes, then they pass off the scene. We don't hear of them again until all of a sudden Elijah comes. And Elijah's a prophet, and he begins to have a band of prophets. So then it appears again with Elijah and then Elisha. But this men are called the school of prophets. And they're only in the northern kingdom. They're never manifest in the southern kingdom as a school of prophets. Most of the prophets, when we get into the minor prophets, we'll discover that most of the prophets are in the northern kingdom and not the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom serves as an example to the southern kingdom in terms of the ministry of those prophets. But then there are a few prophets that come in the southern kingdom. Okay, let's leave that. Then once that ends up coming to pass, they pass off the scene until the life and ministry of Jesus. And then the last purpose, I think, is to demonstrate the state of mind of the elders in the nation at this particular time. Because it's the elders of the nation and not the people as a whole who clamor for a king. So it's those who are the ostensible leaders of the nation who are frustrated with what they've seen up to this point and what's going on, and they want a king. And they say one of the reasons is that they want to be like other nations.
Which is the opposite of what they're supposed to
That's
do.
right, the exact opposite of what God had told them when they were to win the land. They were not to be like the other nations. They were to wipe them out and not be like them. And now we see that they just want to be like them. And they want a king to fight their battles. And we see the interesting contrast with Saul when they're fighting the Philistines and Saul doesn't want to fight. There's Goliath challenging him and Saul ain't go fight the battle. So at this point now they're rejecting God for Samuel 8 when they in their quest for a king. And it's interesting that well, there's just a brief mention of the requisites of the king. It's, I think, in one place that Samuel tells them what's required of the king. Remember, the king had to be literate, he had to be able to read and write, and then he had to be able to write down the book of the law. So, but one of the offices of the priesthood was to make sure they were teaching the people.
I think that should still be required.
Yeah. Okay, here's a simple outline for Samuel. 1 Samuel. Chapters 1 to 3, priestly office. Focuses on Eli, although Samuel enters into there. Then the prophetic office, chapters 3 to 7. And then the princely office, chapters 8 to 31. And under the princely office we see the tragedy of Saul, chapters 8 to 15. And then the training of David, chapters 16 to 31. And his training involves his being a shepherd, his being a courtier, a member of the court, and his being an outlaw. Okay, an outline for 2 Samuel. Again, another little simple one. Chapters 1 to 4, the patient years. Chapters 5 to 10, the prosperous years. Chapter 11, the pathetic year. And then chapters 12 to 24, the perilous years. That's a little homiletical outline. Or another one I've got is chapters 1 to 10, triumphs. Chapter 11, tragedy. Chapters 12 to 24, troubles. Then, as with the book of Judges, chapters 21 to 24 in 2 Samuel are really a commentary on the whole reign of David. So it goes back and gives you another overview of what's going on. Okay, key characters. 1 Samuel with Hannah. Hannah would be a good illustration, as with Ruth, on the possibility of godliness in the midst of apostasy, with all the mess that's going on in the nation, where Hannah is maintaining a stable walk with God. Another character would be Eli, demonstrating to us the failure of the priestly line. Then we have Samuel. He's not a priest, he's a prophet of a different line. Then we have Saul. Remember what tribe he was from? Benjamin, very good. You know what the word Benjamin means?
Son of something.
Yeah. Whenever you see Ben, is always son. Yamin is right hand. So it's son of my right hand, Benjamin. And then David. Remember what tribe David was out of? That's right, tribe of Judah. And then the whole focus of 2 Samuel's on David. Okay, and let's, next thing I wanted to just touch on was Saul's failure. He gets the office and then he loses it. His failure is due to irreverent presumption, chapter 13, where he assumes the priestly role and offers sacrifice. He starts to clutch when the troops start bailing out and going away while they're waiting for Samuel.